Alright, it's time that I do another one of these. Hello everybody! As you know, but probably you don't know, it's been a year since the last unit review. The Young Tiki review kind of still holds up today. Some of the stuff is outdated, but the review still holds up. Anyways, today we are going to be reviewing Ishtar, the thunder goddess from Genealogy of Holy War, which is basically Fire Emblem 4. If you're wondering where the other two are, which are Ares and Lenny or Lene, whatever you like to call her, well, I don't have them. I only pulled Ishtar. But before we start, we gotta put some ground rules first. Firstly, we will be going through 6 categories in this review: strengths, weaknesses, team options, counters, skill set or sets, or you like to call them builds, and the final verdict. Secondly, I have to have the unit in order to review it, because if I don't have the unit, then I can't give my honest opinion, now can I? Lastly, this is just my opinion. If you agree with my thoughts, that's fine. If you don't, just leave a comment telling me your opinion on the unit. And for the first time ever, I will be providing gameplay so you can see the unit in action. So, without any further ado, let's get started. Ishtar has so much going for her. First of all, let's look at her stats. By looking at her stats, you can tell she's already good. She has a base 34 attack, which is one of the highest attack stats for a mage. She's also one of the fastest characters in the game, with a base speed of 36, which means that she will often double a lot of units while not getting doubled herself. So that's pretty neat. As for her defenses, she can actually tank a hit despite being a mage. One of her key strengths is her weapon, Mjolnir. This gives her a really powerful offensive weapon that isn't your everyday blade tome, which is really generic. How is it powerful exactly? Well, the weapon gives her plus 6 speed, which is already broken enough since her speed is a base 36 speed, and adding on top of that, which is really broken. And don't forget about that cooldown. She gets a -1 cooldown in her weapon, so she basically constantly activates specials all the time. Basically, her tome has both Darting Blow 3 and Slaying Edge built into one, which is, well, as aforementioned, really OP. As I mentioned, her offensive stats are really good. She can run her base tome or a blade tome if you really want to do that. Either way, she can make use of those really well. Also, one of her key perks is that she is really cheap to build. Her base kit is already good enough with Swift Sparrow and Odd Attack Wave, which is already boosting her high attack powers and her ungodly speed. All you really need to invest is Desperation. Since she can already tank a hit with her defense and that HP threshold, she can double anyone immediately, which is pretty broken considering her high attack stat. And as I said before, she can tank a hit really well. Just watch out for her physical defense. She might not tank a hit against units who are designed to, well, one-shot her with one hit. And with strengths, well, sadly it comes with weaknesses. So let's move on to weaknesses. Ishtar does have some major weaknesses, like being an infantry unit. And you know what that means for her? Well, being an infantry unit means that she can't have those exclusive flyer or cavalry buffs, like Hone Cavalry, or Hone Flyer, or Fortify Flyer, or Fortify Cavalry. And with being an infantry unit, well, she has limited movement compared to flyers, which can go over terrain and forests, and horses, which have 3 movement spaces compared to the infantry's lackluster 2 movement space. But being infantry means that she can have infantry pulse, which means that she won't have to run quicken pulse in or seal slot. And, well, another flaw is that she isn't really a enemy phase unit like most other units. Since her base kit mainly focuses on a player phase build, that means that she is really vulnerable on enemy phase. Though this can be fixed if you run, well, a Blade Tome on Ishtar. But probably you won't have the time anyway, and the SP, and the feathers, and the emblems. But now, we are done with weaknesses. Let's move on to her team options. For team options, you have a lot going for it. For starters, you can always run refreshers / dancers like Azora, Lenny, Lene, whatever you like to call her, Olivia, etc. There are also some dancers that have perks that help Ishtar, like New Year Azura with guidance because she's a flyer. And also performing dancers like performing Inigo with his B-skill Gale Dance. You can also run tactics, buffs, or really any kind of buff you want. Speaking of buffers, that's also a good team option, even though Ishtar kind of doesn't really need buffs thanks to her already good offensive stats and her odd attack wave, which gives her +6 on her attack. She can still benefit from buffs, regardless. Units like Erica are really good buffers if you decide to run a Blade Tome on Ishtar. That is, if you have the feathers or the SP for it. Or you can use Marth or Sanaki, which are already good buffers thanks to their weapons, although Marth needs the weapon refined for that. Another good option is debuffers. Decreasing the opponent's fighting abilities makes it so that Ishtar can seal the kill more easily. Units like Arvis, who can run a quad poi set, which is honestly a really good set, I recommend it, is an excellent debuffer. Can debuff the unit and Ishtar can honestly kill them more easier. Another good option is a strong red unit, like Aira, who can deal with green units that Ishtar might struggle to kill. Now, let's move on to counters. When you're using Ishtar, just make sure you watch out for these threats. Strong green units, like Legendary Lyn, can take a hit from Ishtar while, well, taking her out in return. Also, debuffers like Gunthra, who has Chilling Seal, can shut down Ishtar's offensive damage thanks to her, well, Ishtar's weak defense. Speaking of the buffers, buff negators are also a counter to Ishtar. There are some units which Ishtar needs the buffs to take out, especially if you're running a Blade Tome, which actually requires a lot of feathers and SP for. Units like Brave Lyn with Attack Smoke can outright negate her attack buff and kill her. Similarly, units who can run Panic Poi like Zelgius flips those buffs into debuffs and, well, rip Ishtar. Also, a really hard counter to Ishtar is, well, units with high raw offensive power. Despite having enough defenses to tank a hit, Ishtar is kind of frail and can't really tank hits from consecutive attacks. Basically, people who attack twice. So units like Shersh, who runs Brave Axe most of the time, can double her and kill her. If they engage her properly in enemy phase, that is. Well, now it's time for skill sets. As for her skill sets, or builds, you really need to run the proper IVs first. The boons you really want to look out for are plus attack, because she can boost her damage output with her already high attack stat, and also doesn't have that much of an issue doubling opponents. And plus speed, because she can outspeed even more things when in combat, and is also fit for blade tomes. That is, if you really want to invest into that. As for Banes, minus HP and minus defense are the stats that you don't want to have a Bane. Because, well, not only both of those stats are a super Bane, but as I mentioned, Ishtar can actually tank a hit. So decreasing that will actually hurt her defenses and probably might get her one shot. As for minus resistance, reducing that won't do much. Even with a minus res Ishtar, you can still tank tomes and also tank breath weapons while keeping her physical bulk balanced. And for her skill sets or builds, you can run a player phase nuke, which is basically in her base kit. It's kind of like mine, basically. Well, actually, it is like mine. Well, Mjolnir for that short cooldown, and that nice +6 speed. Reposition for repositioning units, but you can basically use any support skill, it's up to you. Moonbow for a quick 1 cooldown special thanks to her tome, or you can use Glimmer or Dragonic Aura if you think Moonbow is not enough for you. Swift Sparrow because of her player phase power, or you can run Fury so that you can reach that Desperation HP threshold easier. Speaking of Desperation, because she can tank a hit with her bulk and reach the Desperation threshold. Odd Attack Wave, so you can support your team while also buffing yourself. And as for the Special Seal, you can use Quicken Pulse so that you can get your special instantly. Or you can use Heavy Blade, which is similar to Quicken Pulse. And if you really want to run a Blade Tome on her, I recommend the Special Glimmer because of the damage output, and I also recommend the Speed +3 seal because you won't be running Mjolnir when you're running a Blade Tome. I personally would recommend the player phase set because of how cheap it is to build. Seriously, like, you don't need that much SP. And it's also very effective. I will also show you my Ishtar. As you can see, it's practically a like-to player phase set. Except for the Sacred Seal, which is attack +3. The reason why I gave her that is because it syncs with my female Corrin, which has Infantry Pulse. With Infantry Pulse, I already get a cooldown charge at the start, which means Quicken Pulse and Heavy Blade are basically useless to Ishtar, or my Ishtar. So attack +3 will boost her damage output by a lot, while also getting that Infantry Pulse buff. And with that being said, it's time to move on to my final verdict. So I kinda changed the rules for the final verdict. Instead of the score being out of 10, instead it'll be out of 5, because it's a better scoring range compared to the out of 10 score. And also it doesn't overcomplicate things either. And it will give you guys a better understanding on where I would rank these units. Anyways, back on track. I would give Ishtar a 4.5 out of 5. She is a really fast player phase mage with high offensive power that can take out opponents. Though she does have flaws like being an infantry unit and also being a player phase unit. That is, if you don't run a Blade Tome on her. Other than those flaws, she is a really good offensive blue mage. You like Ishtar if you like a player phase nuker with high offensive power. You like a fast mage that mostly won't get doubled. You like her unique skill, Odd Attack Wave. Or you just want to unleash Mjolnir's Wrath. And as for the gameplay, from now on, at the end of the final verdict, there will be a montage of the unit being showcased. And on the left side of that montage, there will be my screenshot of my, unit with the IVs I have on her. And on the right side, I just put an image of the unit. That simple. So without any further ado, this is Ishtar, and this is what she can do.
Your orders? There's nothing more to be said. Send me. Mjolnir's Wrath. There's nothing more to be said. Mjolnir's Wrath. You will die here. Mjolnir's Wrath. There's nothing more to be said. I am sorry. Mjolnir's Wrath. I am sorry. Mjolnir's Wrath. I am sorry.
And that's it. I'm sorry it took 3 weeks for me to make this Ishtar review. It's just that a lot of things are popping up lately. But, I did it, and the video turned out to be good. I had to write a script for it, sure, but the video is really good, and I am proud of it. So, there is a lot of useful information here, and it's more relevant than ever, other than that Young Tiki video I made. But, anyways, thank you guys for watching, and I will be making more of these. It's just any unit that pops up to my mind, I will do a review of. Or, well, use random.org and then choose a random list of units. That is if I do have them. Which, I do have them. But, well, subscribe to my channel if you haven't. And don't forget to turn on that notification bell for those notifications, so you know that a video has appeared in your subscription feed. Also, don't forget to like the video, it's really appreciated, and share it with your friends. Tell them that Ishtar is really good. And well, to your left will be a summoning video. Yes, a summoning video on the legendary hero Ryoma. And on the right side, well, I have to plug this in, the Young Tiki review, which is kinda irrelevant, but it's still kinda good in my opinion. So, well, there you go. But well, without any further ado, I will see you guys later. Peace!